Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Beyond the Lines Coloring Podcast. I'm your host, Color Mama 360, and it is time for another episode of the podcast. So, good morning, good night, good middle of the night, depending on when you're listening, and welcome back for another solo episode. We are on episode 4, and today is a special Q&A as part of my Milestone month that I'm hosting to celebrate 1 year on YouTube and over 1,000 subscribers. So thank you to everybody who submitted questions for today's episode, and thank you to everyone who has subscribed and supported the channel over the past year. I would not be here without you guys. You really do make creating content and making videos and all of the extra stuff that comes with coloring really worth it. And I'm so excited to continue on with celebrating Milestone Month. So let's jump into coloring news. So a couple things that are happening in July I wanted to cover real fast. You probably already know about these, but just in case, I wanted to call your attention to them. So of course, Jess over at Coloring Bumblebee has her Lulu Mayo scavenger hunt. The July prompts are monkey, flag, shell, and picnic. I have mentioned Jazzy Doodle Designs a couple times on the podcast, and her next collab was just announced. It's going to be an Enchanted Earth by Makamani Hatsupanagatu. And this video went live on 7/1, and that collab will end on 8/2. There is also Color the Fairy Tales, which is hosted by Jordy Colors, and this month they are doing Aladdin. You can also check out her page for more information about that and to see the color palette that is created by Johanna Stone. Hashtag Yummy Year of Color 2026, which is hosted by Finding Joy in Color, has the theme of strawberry for July. And Finding Joy in Color also hosts hashtag Wild Year of Color 2026, and this month's prompt is Oxalotl. There is also hashtag Color by Adry Birthday Bash. This is in honor of Adry's birthday, so go and check out Adry's channel for more information about that hashtag. And then I'm sure most of you have already heard, but the new polychromos are available for pre-order on Amazon UK. If you want more information about that, I know a couple different people have posted about it. I first saw it on Color with Claire's channel, so you can head over there if you would like more information about that or are hoping to pre-order that new set. I also wanted to call attention to Passionista Colorista on Instagram, and all of these people will be in the description so you can go and check them out. But she does a post that has a bunch of different color alongs and tags and things that are happening in the coloring community for the different months. So if you want more information about any of these hashtags or different things that are going on in the community in more of a picture format, you can check out her Instagram. And then I wanted to talk about a couple new releases that I found and kind of my thoughts on them. So I did see that Stratton Peterson is coming out with a new release, The Midnight Garden, and that is set to be released on September 1st. Now, I did learn from one of Jess's live streams that this is actually a compilation book. So for those of you that may already have Stratton Peterson books, you'll want to probably think about that. And it's good to keep in mind that this is a compilation book. Now, I have actually not picked up a Stratton Peterson book yet, and I've been really on the fence about which one I would want to start with when I do decide to get one. And when I actually found out that this was a compilation book, I was probably one of the most excited people about that because I don't own any of the other books. So I know some people were disappointed because it doesn't have a lot of new illustrations and things like that. And that makes sense for the people that may own more of her books. I don't own any. And so I'm actually thinking that starting with the compilation book might be a good avenue for me. I do still think I want to see a flip through, and I'm on a bit of a pause with buying new books, but this is definitely on my radar and something I wanted to share with you guys. Another upcoming release I saw that will be released on September 15th is Vintage Christmas Elves by Teresa Goodridge. Now, if you know me or you know my channel, you know I love a Teresa Goodridge book. However, I don't think this one's going to be for me. With all due respect to Teresa Goodridge, I just find elves a little bit creepy sometimes. We don't do the elf on the shelf thing around Christmas time in my house just because I think it's a little scary. But that's just me. We do a gnome instead. But if you are into kind of that theme of the little elves, I think that this will be the book for you. I saw a couple preview images and it does kind of remind me of that elf that people use for the elf on the shelf because it's like vintage Christmas elves. So if that is something that is a theme that sounds interesting to you, make sure to go check that out. Again, that is set to be released on September 15th. Another upcoming release I saw was Starkana Shadow Magic. This, I don't think I always say this artist's name right, but Ashmagawa, maybe? And that actually will already have been released by the time this podcast comes out, but I did want to call attention to that one too. Now, I own only one other Starkana book, and I haven't colored in it yet, so I'm probably going to hold off on getting this one, but it does look interesting, and I'd love to see a flip through of this as well. All right, everybody. Well, let's go ahead and jump into today's episode, which, like I said, is a special Q&A episode to celebrate Milestone Month. Now, I've never really done an in-depth Q&A on any of my videos or anything like that, and so a lot of this, I think, maybe has slightly been mentioned throughout, but not in a formal way, and so I'm excited to talk about some of more of the roots and different things like that because when I started my channel, I really just kind of jumped into it. So let's go ahead and start with today's Q&A. So the first question, how did your coloring journey begin? So my coloring journey actually began at an unknown date. I remember having adult coloring books as far back as probably 10 years ago, but it really started to stick about a year and a half ago. So one of the first books I remember getting is A Million Christmas Cats, not by Lulu Mayo. Lulu Mayo does not have a book called A Million Christmas Cats, despite the fact that it is called A Million Christmas Cats. And so that actually was really confusing to me when I started to get more into the coloring community. But I the artist of that book is escaping my brain at the moment. And unfortunately, I don't have that book anymore. I wish that I would have kept it because I believe it may be either out of print or harder to find. However, I do see it on eBay sometimes. And so at some point, I'd like to pick that one back up, but that's a different story. I do remember having that book as probably one of my first books. And I can remember like different settings that I was coloring in. Like I remember coloring as far back to like 3 houses ago. And so that's kind of where I'm thinking, okay, that's probably around when I started to get more into the adult coloring books. However, it was very off and on. So for years and years, I would color and then not color, color and not color. It never really stuck. It never really was something that I did as a hobby ongoing. And then I remember around the time of COVID, probably right before, so sometime like 2019, 2020, I started to get a little bit more into it. And that's when I started watching Claire's channel, Color with Claire. And I bought more coloring books and I started to kind of build a little bit of a collection. At that point, I would have probably had a couple Johanna Basford books, and then I definitely had Twilight Gardens by Maria Chole and Nightfall. I was trying to think of what the other one was. And I do still have my copy of Twilight Gardens and Nightfall. However, my original copies of my Johanna Basford books, I don't have anymore. And so I remember kind of going through a little bit of a longer period of getting into it. I got the Prismacolor, I want to say one size down from the 150, I believe. Um, but I didn't really get into anything too technical or really try to improve my skills or anything like that. I just colored to color. And I still just color to color, but I didn't really do anything to try to like improve my skills. And then I want to say it was late 2024 that I kind of started to get back into it again. And that's when I started discovering more channels like Jess, Coloring Bumblebee, um, and Erica at Elm Colors, Shell at Shell's Coloring Journey, um, some of the people that I still watch today. And that's when I started to realize, okay, this is actually like a whole community. Um, and a lot of different people do stuff like this on YouTube. And so end of 2024, I did quite a bit of coloring. And then I went through a coloring slump at the beginning of 2025. And this was also around the time that I was pregnant with my second child. And so I was just sick, didn't feel great. Coloring just wasn't really on my radar. So around the time of like February 2025 to May 2025, I really didn't do a whole lot of coloring. Every once in a while I would, but I wasn't doing enough to really like have a certain number of completed pages or anything like that. Now, back to rewind a little bit, back in 2024, at the end of 2024, I remember kind of joking around with my cousin, showing her my coloring books and being like, should I start a YouTube channel? And I was like, showing her my completed pages as I would if I was making a video. But it was never actually on my radar to do something like that. And so after that coloring slump, I started to get back into it and started watching videos again, really started to get more immersed in the community. And then in July of 2025, so I was only about 3 months out, if even that, maybe more like 2.5 months out from having my second baby. And I just got this wild idea. And I was just like, I think I want to start a YouTube channel. So I did, and the rest is kind of history, and I'll talk more about that in my reflections video that comes out later this month. But that is basically how my coloring journey began and how it got to kind of what it is now. The second question is, did you always have confidence in your coloring or did it take some time? Um, I don't know that I still to this day would say that I have confidence in my coloring. I definitely can see improvement even over the past year. I think last month was the first time that I can remember that I was saying like, "Oh my gosh, I really like this page. I really like this page. I really like this page." That it was actually really hard to pick a favorite. I feel like months prior, there was like a clear favorite for me. So I think this is something that I'm still working on. I also think that it's okay to come from a place of wanting to improve. So I am very much motivated by um, there's always room for improvement. And sometimes I think it can be taken as I'm being harsh on myself, but it's not that. It's just like, oh, if I did this again, I could do it better, or I would do this differently. It's not necessarily coming from a place of negativity. It's coming from more of a place of, I think that there's always room for improvement. Question number 3, why did you decide to start a YouTube channel? So I kind of talked about this a little bit, but it was just kind of a random idea that I had. And I think it was like on my radar, but not in a serious way. Like I didn't think I would actually ever do it. And then I finally just decided, I really want to talk about this with somebody who also has the same passion for it that I do, if that makes sense. So, I can tell other people that don't color about coloring, but there's something different about being part of a community and talking to other people who also are part of that community and who also enjoy the hobby. And so I was really looking for that connection. And I've talked about this slightly before, but I didn't have any sort of social media prior to starting my channel. And so when I started my YouTube channel, I really realized that I probably need to have an Instagram too if I wanted to be more immersed in the community. And so that was what I decided to do. That way I could participate in more buddy colors and be able to interact with people in a different way and things like that besides just commenting on videos. Question number 4, what does your coloring routine look like currently? So a few months back, I did like my coloring morning routine as a full-time employee and a busy mom. And that was a really fun video to make, actually. I probably will make something similar, some sort of updated version. But right now, what my coloring routine looks like is I do have quite a set out schedule. That's just my personality. I'm a planner. I like to do things in advance. And so right now, what I do is I do the majority of my coloring in the mornings. So while my kids are still asleep, I wake up around 4:30. I do anything coloring related. Usually on Mondays and Tuesdays, I film videos or record podcasts. And then my kids get up around 7:30, and so I go and get them ready for the day. And then on Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday, I also have an hour at the end of the day that I do coloring stuff. I usually just use that time to actually color. Um, I don't do a whole lot of filming and stuff like that because I only have an hour. But if there's any sort of like coloring admin things I need to do, I'll use that time. So Monday and Tuesday mornings I film. Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday mornings, I color. I was doing live streams on Friday mornings, but I do not do those anymore except for special events. Like I'm doing one near the end of the month for Milestone month, but I'm not going to be doing those regularly on Fridays anymore. So Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday mornings, I just color. A lot of editing videos and sort of that side of the coloring admin. I do that either throughout the day when I have time or during that hour at the end of the day on Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. So that was a little bit all over the place, but that is what my coloring routine currently looks like. Question number 5: who is your all-time favorite artist? This is a tricky one because I think if you would have asked me a month or so ago, I would have hands down said Ella Yarzenbeck, and she's definitely up there. But I have really been enjoying Mariola Budek, I think is how you say her name, and most of her artwork I have in PDF format. So her books are a little bit more pricey for me to get over here, and so it just makes more sense for me to buy the PDFs. But I just think her artwork is stunning, and one of the reasons I think she may be my favorite is because there are pictures of hers that I've colored that I'm like, I love this so much, I want to frame it and put it on my wall. And I think that I mean, maybe that's just I really like the way I colored it too, but there's something about her artwork that just really grabs me and stands out to me, and I just enjoy it a lot. I think she's super super talented. I also think Ella Yarzenbeck is super super talented, and I love um, her illustration style. It's the perfect combination for me between not too like cozy coloring and not too detailed. And so I really love her as well. I would say that they're probably my two favorite. I don't know if I prefer one over the other right now. I also fully recognize that opinions change, and that's probably going to change too. I'm sure if you ask me again in a year or even 6 months, I might have a completely different artist that's my favorite. But currently those are the top two that I have really been loving. Question number 6: what is one coloring technique or medium you used to struggle with but now love? That's a tricky question. What is one technique or medium you used to struggle with but now love? Um, I don't think I would say I love this now, but I have really struggled with layering. So I watched a lot of tutorials and things on layering and kind of the difference between how you might choose to lay down wax-based pencils versus oil-based pencils. And I wouldn't say that I love it now, but I do think I'm starting to get to the point where I'll be like, oh, I feel like doing this today. Like, I feel like doing a page that's going to require more layering today. Whereas before, I would just kind of like avoid it like the plague, and I want to make sure that I'm getting use out of those pencils as well. That didn't really answer the question, but I think that's the best that I've got. Question number 7: how do you get out of a coloring slump? So I made a video on this a while back too, which could also probably be updated in the future, but a lot of times if I'm going through a coloring slump, I just need to kind of assess like, am I experiencing like creative burnout somewhere? A lot of different areas may contribute to a coloring slump. So I try to kind of assess like, am I just feeling like, ugh, I don't really feel like coloring, is it feels more of a chore, I just need a break. And then if that's the case, then usually I will go and try to do something else with like content, or just take a break altogether. It's okay to not color on some days. However, it benefits my mindset so much, and I use it for mindfulness, that if I don't have that, then I need to find something else. So anytime that I'm not coloring as much, I definitely try to assess like, okay, what other activity can I do for my mindfulness? Because I actually have seen the impact that it has when I'm not coloring as much and I don't have anything else to kind of fill in that gap. But if I'm just feeling like sick of a page or not feeling inspired, like I physically want to color, but I'm just not feeling inspired or something, then that's when I usually just get out my books and flip through them. Um, I think that that's a great way to just kind of get inspired. It's like doing a shop my stash with your own stash. And I think as we continue to collect more and more books, which I do, um, it's good to just kind of look through them sometimes. And I do think that doing sort of the seasonal type shop my stash videos for me has actually really helped keep me out of a coloring slump. I don't think that I've experienced one at the level that I did last year where I just didn't color for several months. I haven't experienced that since then. So I do think it helps to do for me to make the shop my stash videos and things like that. And that kind of goes into a little bit of I I make these videos for myself as well. So that's a great example of that. If okay, question number 8. If a terrible tragedy happened and you had to rebuild your collection from scratch, what would be the first books and supplies you would repurchase? Supplies wise, definitely the Prismacolors. I think that that's just it's my favorite pencil right now, out of what I have. I use it the most. I feel like it's pretty versatile. So I definitely would rebuy my Prismacolors. Books is a little bit harder. Um, yeah, I don't know. I would probably say that I would rebuy my Ella Yarzenbeck books, and then I would rebuy the Mariola Budek PDFs. I feel like those would be a good place to start. But both of those aren't super detailed, or they're kind of in the middle. And so I think after that, as I continue to build my collection, I would probably start rebuying Hannah Carlson books. Um, that would be what I would focus on next. Okay, question number, what are we on here? 9. What pencil sets or supplies do you have your eye on right now? And along with that, what books do you have your eye on right now? So I talked a little bit a few months ago about how I felt really happy with the pencil sets that I have. So I have the Prismacolor 150 set. So those are my wax-based pencils. I have the Polychromos. So those are my oil-based. And I have the Albrecht Dürers, which those are watercolor. And the Polychromos and the Albrecht Dürers are great because they have the same color codes. I felt really happy with that. Oh, I also have the Castle Art Pastel tints, to get some of those lighter colors. And so I really feel like my collection is where it needs to be. With that being said, I would say over the last couple weeks, I have kind of been finding myself wanting to try the Derwent Chromaflows, um, or just another wax-based pencil. That's the one that I have my eye on right now, is the Chromaflows. But while I love the I do love the polychromos too, but while I love the Prismacolors, I definitely lean more towards a wax-based pencil, and I would really like to try some other ones and just branch out a little bit because I've never used another wax-based pencil regularly the same way that I've used the Prismacolors. So I do have my eye on those. I don't know if I will purchase them soon. What was interesting was I was actually looking on Amazon today and they're not available on Amazon US right now. I don't know if they're sold out or what's going on with that, but I did notice that they're currently maybe out of stock. It has the button that says like um other sellers or something like that, um versus how it normally looks. So yeah, my plan was to maybe use some fetch money or some YouTube money or something like that to purchase those along with asking for them for my birthday, but I guess we'll see. So, but that is the one pencil set that I kind of have my eye on right now if I do choose to expand. And then a book I have my eye on right now. I don't know that I really have my eye on any books at the moment. Um, I do have a pre-order coming, I think early August. And then I canceled my other pre-order, which was Tales from the Castle Runes, because my mom was able to find it in Scandinavia while she was over there and she brought it back. So I have the Swedish edition now. So I ended up canceling my pre-order for the English edition. So yeah, there's really no books that I have my eye on right now. Besides maybe that Stratton Peterson book, but that would definitely be a book that I think will come later, not a book that I would be purchasing anytime soon. Let's see. Next question. If you could spend a whole day coloring and chatting with any coloring creator or artist, who would it be? I'm going to answer this in a twofold because coloring creator to me is separate from artist and I would have different answers. So if I could spend the whole day coloring and chatting with any coloring creator, that's really tricky. I don't know because there's so many great creators out there. I really want to talk to more than one. Um, hmm. I'd probably have to say Claire with Color with Claire just because she's the first creator that I ever um found on YouTube and I watched so much of her content when I first found her and even now I still love watching her content. So I'd probably have to say Claire as far as a coloring creator, and then as far as an artist, I'm gonna have to go with either the same answer, Mariola Budek or Ella Yarzenbeck. I think either one of them would be great to speak to. So question number 11. Okay. I knew this question was on here. And this question I actually pulled from my interviews, but um, I'm also just think it's a funny story. So, question number 11 is what is your most embarrassing YouTube moment so far? I don't even have to think about this. It just happened a couple weeks ago. So I posted the flip through of the mythographic Alice in Wonderland book that I found at Barnes and Noble before the release date. And I did not realize that Joseph Cattenbang's channel name does not have his actual name in it. So he had actually commented on that video and said something along the lines of like, thanks for doing the flip through. I haven't even received my copy yet. And me, not knowing that it was Joseph Cattenbang, replied something along the lines of like, oh, I'm so glad that you got a sneak peek. And oh my gosh, I was absolutely mortified when I found out that it was him. I felt so bad. So I actually went and commented again and was just like, I'm so sorry, I didn't realize who this was. And I don't think that he was like offended or anything, but it was definitely embarrassing. I also think it's kind of funny like looking back on it now, but yeah, I just didn't realize that I wasn't subscribed to him on YouTube and I didn't realize that his channel name didn't have like his name Joseph Cattenbang in it. So it just didn't even occur to me, and there were a lot of comments coming in on that book or on that video, and I just, yep, didn't even realize. So when I did realize though, I was absolutely mortified, but it's fine. I'll move on. Question number 12. How do you come up with your tag videos? Honestly, it is so random. Um so the unpopular opinions video was never, I never had that idea of it being a tag video. I actually recorded a color and chat way, way, way back last year that was set to be released while I was on maternity leave. And my opinions had changed so much by the time between when I recorded it and when it was set to be released that I actually decided to not release it because my opinions had changed that much. And so that is just a reminder that opinions change and that is okay. And so when I came back around to the idea of doing something like that again, I did decide to make it into a tag video, and I came up with more questions than me just sharing my opinion. So before, I feel like it was more just like me sharing my opinions, and then when I did it again, I've made it into more of a question format. And so I came up with those questions just based on things that, I had heard people talking about. I did purposely avoid bringing up super controversial topics. Maybe not super controversial, but things that people might have super strong opinions about, just because I know that it's a very respectful community, but I didn't want to stir the pot that much. So I did avoid questions that I felt like could end up rising, having opinions that rise to a level that people might feel offended or things like that. And then my red flags video that came about. How did I come up with that one? Again, they're really random. Sometimes I just come up with these ideas like in the middle of the night, but I want to say that there was something happening. I think I was listening to like reality TV drama or something like that, and they were talking about like red flags. And then I started to think about like what would these look like in a coloring community type of way, and that's how I kind of came up with that one. The coloring book personalities one, that one again was just kind of random. I was thinking of it more as like I'd heard a lot of people say like, oh well, I use this book for like mindless coloring, or I use this book when I'm sitting on the couch to watch TV. And so that's kind of where those started to come from, was just I was like, what if there was like set things like the midnight snack, or the dark and moody, or things like that. And then that's kind of how I came up with that. And this comes out after the coloring passport tag, I believe, which that one, I've had that idea for a while actually, and I kind of talked about how it came about, but it just came about because I really wanted to make like a pack my bag video with me, but we're not going on vacation this year. And so I was like, what could I do that's similar? And then around the same time, there was also another tag that came out called like pack your suitcase or something like that. And it was a little bit different than kind of what I had thought for the tag I wanted to do. So I was kind of inspired by that, but I wasn't necessarily like I had this idea of doing it for different vacations, if that makes sense. I think that if I did that one again, I would have combined them. So I think Escape to Coloring, who did the pack your suitcase tag, did more of like you show different pages in the books. I didn't show any pages in the books that I would pack, but that would be fun to kind of combine them. However, that would make for a very long video. So anyways, this is kind of how I come up with my tag videos. It's really random. A lot of times just like something will spark an idea, and then I'll kind of run with it from there. And a lot of times I'll ask like different people's opinions, and they'll help me kind of refine things. So for example, with like the coloring book personalities tag, I can't remember who it was that I asked. I asked somebody, like, what do you think this would look like? And they helped me come up with some of the other personalities and things like that. So a lot of times the ideas just come randomly, and then people are always super, super helpful in helping me kind of refine things. So, okay. Question number 13. What is the most rewarding piece of advice or comment you've ever received from a viewer? I don't know, honestly. I don't feel like my videos necessarily elicit like advice. Um, yeah, that's a hard one. Um, I can't think of anything at the moment, but I do always appreciate when people um comment like things that they specifically like, or that they feel like a tag video was a really good idea and that they want to do it too. I would say one of the most rewarding things about coming up with an idea is when other people want to do it too. Um, I think that's really fun. And it's it's fun to feel like, oh, I created something that other people liked so much that they also want to do it. And so that didn't really answer that question, but that's the best I've got. Question number 14. What do you hope the channel will look like in a year? Um, I don't know that I have a clear idea. I definitely a year ago when I started the channel did not have any plans to do like a podcast. I did not necessarily see it becoming where I'm at today, but somehow I have definitely fallen into this area of coming up with these ideas that seem to make, like I said, like good tag videos. And so I think I'm really going to continue to lean into that. There's only going to be so many ideas I can come up with, though. So obviously, I'm not going to say like I'm only making tag videos or anything like that, but I really feel like that's kind of been my niche area. And that's probably the videos that I like filming the most next to completed pages and plans. So I definitely think more of those. Um, I'm trying to think of where else I'd like to see things. I would still like to be doing the podcast in a year. I've really enjoyed this format. I feel like it takes the pressure off a little bit, to be able to talk about things, but also not have to focus on coloring something so that it's not like just a weird video. Um, and I've really enjoyed the people that I've gotten to talk to on the podcast so far. Those have been super, super fun interviews, and it's just so interesting to, because you hear people talking in their videos and they hear you talking in your videos, and then some of them do live streams, so you'll ask a question and they'll answer right back. But actually being able to have like a two-way conversation with voice is so crazy, especially like with somebody that you've been watching their videos for so long. And so that has been really, really fun. And I really hope to kind of grow this and be able to do more of those in the future. All right. Well, that is all of the questions. I am super not excited to listen to this back for editing because I don't necessarily like listening to myself talk this much, but I hope that you enjoyed hearing some of these questions. And I just wanted to kind of quickly wrap things up with a colorist spotlight this week. And I'm going to apologize in advance. I don't know how to pronounce this person's name, but I'm going to spell it for you as well as put it down in the description. So it's Yaezzakura. And I found this person on Instagram, and then it was crazy because I was really admiring their page that they had colored. And so I went to comment and I realized that somebody had commented already, like, oh, I just followed you over on YouTube. I didn't realize that I was already admiring your work on Instagram. And I was like, oh, this person also has a YouTube channel. So I went and checked out their YouTube channel as well. And I've really been enjoying kind of just catching up on their videos, seeing what their style is, and things like that. And I'm going to be watching more videos in the future, but just in case, I wanted to make sure, just in case you also may be missing that they have a YouTube channel. This could just be a me thing. I wanted to spotlight this person. And again, I'm so sorry that I don't know how to pronounce your name. I want to say it's like Yezekura, maybe not. But anyways, I spelled it for you earlier and I will put it down in the description. Please make sure to check out their channel and their Instagram account if you haven't already. And then I wanted to talk about my favorites of the week, which I usually have notes for this and will put this down in my notes, but I didn't think about this this week that much. So I would have to say I don't know what my favorites of the week are, honestly. Um I've really been enjoying just kind of PDFs. I would definitely say probably PDFs are my favorite of the week. I had a lot of plans this month and I've finished more PDFs than I have any pages in books. Um, and they're all PDFs that I had not planned, but that happens. And I'm really trying to lean into coloring what I feel like coloring. And I did get some new paper for my PDF. So I ended up getting the Strathmore Bristol paper. It's not the right size for my printer though, but it's okay. I'm going to cut it down to get it to the right size. I'm not going to reprint all of my PDFs though. That would be absolutely ridiculous and just not a good use of time or money. But if there is a specific page that I really want to do with Prismacolors, I like the Prismacolors 10,000 times better on the Strathmore paper than the other paper that I have, which is the Nina cardstock. I do not like the Prismacolors on those. Polychromos and Albrecht Dürer I think will be fine on the Nina. So it's just going to depend on what pencil I'm using. And then if I need to make a copy on the Strathmore Bristol paper, then I can do that. So I would say PDFs are my favorite of the week. And I think that's it, everybody. I don't think I have anything else. I'm so happy that you chose to join me for this special Q&A episode. There we go. As part of my milestone month. I still have a couple things left. So there will not be a podcast episode next week, but the following week, I have another interview coming and then some other milestone events I have going on the rest of the month. I still have another extended live stream that will be on the 24th of July, and I'm doing all Ella Yarzenbeck that day. We'll see if I actually finish even one page, but we're going to try and see how far I get. And then I also have a reflections video coming out to just kind of reflect back on the past year. It's going to include things like some of my least favorite pages, some of my favorite pages, pages that I showed on the channel first, pages I colored on the channel first, just kind of reflecting back in more of a video format, and different questions and things like that from this podcast episode. So there'll be completely different content. All right, guys. Well, I think that is it for this time. I hope that you have an awesome week, and I will see you guys next time. Happy coloring, everybody. Bye.